Welcome to the EOB podcast where we talk about the weekend box office and the new openings this week. I'm Benno, and this is another podcast where you'll be listening to me speak by myself again because Sen Duong won't be joining us again. The party keeps going, so let's begin. Coming in number one is Minions. The spin-off of the Despicable Me movies. It made $115 million over the weekend. In the previous podcast, I said the movie would make somewhere in the 60 to 65 range, but hey, this movie blew my projections out of the water. It made more than that, and it's a huge successful movie. So it is actually the second highest opening for an animated film behind the third Shrek movie, and $115 million. Solidify these little yellow guys as a definitive franchise. Basically, it says you can make a movie just with these guys. You don't need Gru anymore. So Universal can actually do a two-track, have two-track. Have one of the main character with the main Despicable Me movies with Gru and all the other human characters, right? And then another one with just these minions. As this movie show, it will work. As for how well it do, we'll see in the second weekend how far the percentage drop from the second weekend. If it's greater than 50%, then it probably won't hold as well. But if it's below, because since the review is not that great, it has a 54% on the tomato meter, but it has an A cinema score, meaning that while critics don't like it, the audience who've seen it do. They give it an A cinema score, but the critics had gave it a 54%, which is an aggregate of a number of publications. So we'll see. As we can expect that Minions tends to skew younger, right? But even if it's a 50% drop, it's still gonna make around around 50 or so million in the second weekend. So yeah, this is a movie definitely to keep an eye on and to see how well it does in the second weekend. I'm sure we'll be seeing more movies about these yellow characters. And let's see, coming in number two is Jurassic World. It made $18.1 million in its fifth weekend, holding up extremely well. Week over week, it experienced like a less than 50% drop from its previous weekend. For this past weekend, it only experienced a 38.1% drop. And so far, it made $590 million domestic. Worldwide, it's currently at 1.4 billion, which puts it at number 5 on the all-time list. It only needs 52 million or so to catch up to Furious 7, which occupies the 4th spot right now. In terms of box office, Jurassic World is the number 1 movie so far in 2015, a movie no one expect to be the number 1 movie. Everyone was predicting the movie to open somewhere in the 40 to 50 million range, but it opened to like 208 million, which is huge, amazing. So the dinosaur movies started by Jurassic Park is back online, meaning we're gonna see more Jurassic movies. I don't know what the second title is. It's probably gonna be Jurassic World 2, since Jurassic Park is, and they don't want to make any reference, besides Jurassic, they don't want to have any link to the previous movies. So second movie is probably going to be called Jurassic World 2, and stars Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. They're probably going to be in the sequel, which definitely will happen, and they gotta find in Chris Pratt. Alright, so that's it for Jurassic World right now. Like, huge movie, the movie to beat this year. The only movie that I see that can beat Jurassic World right now is the new Star Wars movies, Episode 7, that's coming out later in December. But historically, movies that open in December don't usually have that huge of an opening. But we will see, okay? We will see. Because Star Wars is pretty much a social event, a cultural event, I mean to say. Because it's the holidays, people will take off work and to rush out in theaters to catch a new Star Wars movie that is not directed by George Lucas. He pretty much ruined the series with his prequels and revision to the beloved franchise with his edits to the episode 4, 5, and 6. So we'll have to see. From the recently released teaser at Comic-Con, the movie's looking good. They're going back to the roots. Instead of like actors acting in front of a green screen and all the CGI, they're doing real props, real sets, and it's going to look great, and it's looking good. I'm hyped for it. and I think other people are too. I mean, since this is the first movie that's not directed or influenced by George Lucas, he might have a little say in it, but he is not the primary driver, and and his excess and his love for CGI won't be in the movie. So okay, something to keep an eye on, because Jurassic World right now is the #1 movie, and we'll see if Star Wars can overtake it later this year. So we'll see. Moving on to number 3 is Inside Out, which came in #1 last weekend, but Jurassic World overtook it. It got a Fun in the Sun as the #1 movie, but right now it's back to behind Jurassic World. And in number 3, it made 17.1 million. Just like Jurassic World, very strong hold, because the drop off is less than 50%, only experienced a 42.5% drop off. And so far, it made 283 domestic, which is amazing, right? Because in Pixar history, it's only second to Toy Story 3, in opening figures. And right now, in Pixar's history, it's the 4th overall in terms of box office, behind Toy Story 3, Finding Nemo, and Up. So it will probably move up to the second spot when it's all said and done. And worldwide, it already made 435 million. So, yay, a very strong movie. And it's going to be in theaters for a while because of the week-over-week drop. It's not that much. So it's still going to be hanging in there, over the summer and into the fall. And let's move on to number 4 is Terminator Genisys. In its second weekend, it made 13.7 million. I'm surprised by the drop off. It's only 39.3%. I expect it to be in the high 50s, if not 60s. And it made 68.7 million so far domestic. But worldwide, it did way better. Overseas, it made 156 million for a worldwide gross of 224. It is a huge disappointment here because, first of all, it's the Terminator brand, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger returning to play his iconic role. But as you can see from the domestic figures, Arnold Schwarzenegger is not a draw anymore. Like, his recent starring vehicles didn't perform well here at all. But overseas, the Terminator brand and Arnold Schwarzenegger is still a draw. That's why it's doing way better. It's getting twice the amount overseas than domestic. But unfortunately, the movie costs around somewhere in the neighborhood of 155 million to make. Yeah, so it's gonna need help. Need a lot of help overseas for the movie to become profitable. But it's on its way. They're planning 2 more movies. Another one is coming in 2017, and the third one is coming in 2018. They have to rush to make this movie because in 2019 the rights to the Terminator franchise will go back to James Cameron, and who knows what he'll do with it. He could make more, or he could just sit on it, or he'll just license it out to somebody else. Okay, so as you can see, Arnold Schwarzenegger, his movies are not doing well, even though it's Terminator. It might do well on home video. Like, people might not want to rush out to watch the new Terminator movie, but they might want to check it out on video when it becomes in the form of DVD, Blu-ray, or on streaming. So there's still hope there. So not all is lost. It looks like the numbers are good. I mean, when taking everything into account. So they'll probably go forward with the movies in 2017 and 2018. Okay, let's move on to number 5. One of the new movies that opened last week, called The Gallows. I think in a previous podcast I was saying that it was the Gallows without the S. I don't know why, because in the movie there's only one Gallows, I assumed, because I haven't seen it, where one of the students hanged himself many years ago. This movie is one of in the genre of the found footage horror movie. About a student who died during a school play that involved said Gallows, and then he or someone related, or a ghost, who knows, came back for revenge against the future student body who decided to resurrect the play that killed him. Or did he die at all? Dun dun dun. We don't know. I was predicting the movie would make 50 million, but it only did 10. So it looks like the new movies like Minions sucked a couple million here and there from this horror movie, because The Gallows is aimed toward pretty much teenagers who want to look for some scares. But hey, there are all these big movies in theaters like Minions, Jurassic World, Inside Out, even Terminator Genisys. So there are those for teens who manage to get in or sneak in or whatever, especially for those R-rated movies. But in any case, it only made 10. Hey, maybe those said teens, bought the tickets for one movie and maybe for a G-rated movie, Minions maybe, and snuck in the Gallows. Who knows? But officially, it only made 10 million. And it will only drop from there. But hey, these movies, horror movies, found footage horror movies, are extremely cheap to make. Maybe I don't know. I'm not sure if it even costs 1 million. And so far, it's gonna make. It already made 10 million. It's probably gonna make what 20 million or 25 million in its theatrical run. So hey, it's already profitable. Okay, let's move on to number 6, which is Magic Mike XXL. It experienced a 25% drop off and made 9.6 million over the weekend, and it's only in the second week. Hey, huge disappointment when you compare it to the first movie. The first movie had a 40 million opening, and it went on to make 167 million worldwide. And the second movie, kind of disappoint relative to that. But hey, the movie's gonna make money anyway, because I believe the movie costs around somewhere in the 30-ish million to make. That's the budget. So it's gonna make its money back. And I think internationally, the movie's not doing that well either. So far, it only made 20 million. But hey, and for a total worldwide gross of 68 million. But hey, like I say, 30 million budget, it's going to make its money. And when you're taking into consideration all the other avenues where they can get money back as well. So, but we probably won't see a Magic Mike 3, or they could add a Magic Mike XXXL. For the third title. I'm sure they're aiming for it. But even if they decide to make a third movie, it will probably go direct to video. I mean, since hey, this is a formula that they can milk. They can hire a bunch of good-looking guys, to take off the clothes or whatever and dance around, and that's it. Male objectification. So it's there, and it's something they can milk indefinitely on home video. The audience is there, seems, but maybe the surprise, I guess, of the first movie is not there anymore, and so that's why we probably won't see Magic Mike 3 released in theaters. Okay, let's go on to number 7, which is Ted 2. The movie made 5.6 million in its third weekend. Experienced a nearly 50% drop from its previous weekend, and it made 71 million so far. Ted 2 is one of those movies that, because the first movie did so well, like Magic Mike XXL, the first movie did so well that they're obligated to make a second movie, because the first movie had a 54 million opening and went on to make like almost half to make 549, which is really a little bit more than $500 million worldwide. And so that's why we're seeing Ted 2. The sequel disappoints somewhat. The budget, because of the special effects, it probably costs around somewhere in the 60 to 70 million range. Domestically, it's right now in the third weekend, it's 71, and worldwide, it's not doing that well either. Worldwide, let's see, in the foreign overseas market, it's at 53, and for a worldwide gross of 124 million. We probably won't be seeing a third Ted, since we're assuming the third movie is even going to be less than the second movie. So, I guess that's it for Ted. If there is a third movie, it probably won't come from Universal. I mean, they'll probably give the right to another studio. Okay, moving on to number 8 is the thriller Selfless. It stars Ryan Reynolds and Ben Kingsley, and it didn't do as well as I thought it would. I was predicting a 20 to 25 million opener, but it only made 5.3 million over the weekend. What happened there? I guess people just don't want to see Ryan Reynolds and Ben Kingsley in this thriller, or that Ryan Reynolds is really not that big of a box office draw. So in the movie, right, Ben Kingsley plays a rich dude who is dying of old age or disease or whatever, but he's dying, and then scientists offer him a chance to transfer his consciousness into the body of a younger man, and that younger man is played by Ryan Reynolds. And then the younger man's conscience is starting to surface. He's starting to remember more about himself, his life and events. And then it discovered that, hey, maybe the body was not acquired above board. Like maybe the guy, Ryan Reynolds, didn't die of natural causes. Probably the scientists probably killed him and acquired. So it's one of those morality tales. It's like, what would you do to live longer? It could be about, like I say in the previous podcast, it could be a movie about, organs, like cloning people just for their organs. One of those things. Would you do it? And I guess it wasn't that huge of a hit, especially with the summer here. Maybe that's not what some people want to watch. You think with all the things that's going on there, all the the people want to see stuff blows up. Maybe they don't want to think, and this movie is something that it would require some thinking, But hey, if you're looking for thrills, Jurassic World is your movie. Terminator Genisys is your movie. There are other competition out there, so that's why we see Selfless drawing in only 5.3 million over the weekend. But hey, it could be that people really doesn't want to pay to watch Ryan Reynolds, right? I mean, since his recent movies haven't been doing that well. Okay, let's move on to number 9. It's an indie movie. I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation. It's Bahubali, The Beginning. This movie came out of nowhere. Let's see, it opened in a little over 200 theaters, but it made 3.5 million over the weekend, and with a per screen average of 15,000. So that is quite impressive. But with these Indian movies, they tend to be front loaded. These movies have their fans. It's very cinematic, and it kind of has a touch of like Dwayne Johnson's Hercules. It's almost like that, and and these large battle scenes probably took its inspiration from Lord of the Rings. In the second weekend, we'll probably see it drop off from the top 10. Okay, let's move on to number 10. It's the movie Max, a Warner Brothers release about a bomb-sniffing dog whose handler was killed in action, and the dog had to go back the dog was traumatized because of his handler's death, and the dog has to go live with the handler, the deceased soldier's brother, who then bonded with him and start the healing process. The movie made 3.4 million over the weekend for a total of 33.7 million. So hey, I think this movie doesn't cost that much to make. Probably 10 to 15 million range, maybe, if that. And so far, 33.7 million is not bad. I mean, it's probably made its money, and it's one of these movies that's geared, targeted toward the military families for 4th of July, and it did its job. So that's it for the top 10. Let's move on to openings. For the wide release this weekend, we have Marvel's Ant-Man. It stars Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas. If I have to describe it, it's a more comedic version of Iron Man, another Marvel release, or Iron Man for kids is what I want to describe it. And it's directed by Peyton Reed, who did the comedy Bring It On and The Breakup with Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston. So, the trailer, it looks funny. Like I say, it looks like Iron Man for kids. I mean, Paul Rudd stars as, a thief who was recruited by Michael Douglas, who's a scientist, and he has this suit that can control ants and allows him, the person who wears it, to shrink down to the size of an ant. And we've seen scenes of the character dodging obstacles, dealing with insects and what have you due to the size. And then there is when the suit was discovered, there's another suit that's worn by the bad guy, and they fight it out. Like I say, Iron Man for kids, and it looks quite good, quite funny. I wouldn't be surprised if this movie would open somewhere, in the 50 plus million range. 50 million range, could be more, could be less, but ballpark should be around the 50 or so. So that's what I would expect. So it's going to be another successful outing for Marvel and their comic book movies. And as you know, it'll probably it'll tie in with other Marvel movies. So this is just an introduction to Iron Man, and he'll use this to appear in other Marvel movies. So introduction here, and then team up later on in other superhero movies. And that's what we can expect. Okay, and the other wide release is the comedy directed by Judd Apatow called Trainwreck, stars Amy Schumer and Bill Hader. It kind of bears a similar resemblance to Elizabeth Banks Walker-Shane. Amy Schumer plays a woman who is quite successful at her job. She sleeps around. She works at a men's magazine, and her editor or manager directed her to investigate this doctor played by Bill Hader. And they, as you know, they fall in love, and she is a woman who doesn't want to get tied down, but she is discovering that, hey, there is potential for a longer lasting relationship there, and she doesn't know how to deal with it, and that's where the comedy comes from. And hey, LeBron James, the NBA star, it's in the movie as well, so he's probably a producer. In any case, Judd Apatow, he's always good for maybe like 15 to 20 million opening, so I expect Trainwreck to make somewhere in that range, because of who's in it. Amy Schumer and Bill Hader are not really like big stars, big draws, so that's where I expect the movie to come in at. So okay, that's it for now, and tune in next week and to see how my predictions went. Okay, catch you later. Bye.